What's up, guys? It's Rey-Jay back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, Nvda, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to talk about why tomorrow is going to be a crazy day as we have the FOMC minutes coming out, and this may affect the charts moving forward. But just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $2,000, you're guaranteed 30 in total. And the offer ends very soon at the end of March. Anyways, as far as the market is going, we have a very, very interesting trend so far. My prediction yesterday was that SPY would see a bit of a dip and then a bounce. What happened instead was SPY did not really do it like that. We actually gapped up and made a new all-time high, pushing to the 612s in the beginning. Then we got this dip, and then we bounced just like we had predicted. But overall, we haven't broken 612 yet to turn super, super bullish and go for that new all-time high towards that 615 to 616 targets. But simultaneously, as we touched our 50 EMA on the 1 hour time frame, as we ended up touching near our 608 targets, we did not actually close below that. We actually ended up holding above that very, very nicely. That's a very, very good sign so far that the bulls have an edge. So the question is, why is tomorrow going to be a big day? What data is coming out? I'm going to talk about that first, and I'll break down these charts in more detail. Just know, as a reminder, I'm seeing some headlines about Donald Trump and his tariffs. Just know that Donald Trump has not officially announced the tariffs, what they're officially going to be looking like when it comes to semiconductors, pharmaceuticals, and automotive imports. They haven't officially been announced yet. He did imply that he's going to likely impose more tariffs, possibly around 25%, but that depends on what he ends up announcing. The announcement could be coming as soon as April 2nd, but he did tell us that he does plan on doing this. So keep that in mind. The specific numbers are not out, but Donald Trump does have plans to do this as time progresses. For the time being, this is not really affecting the market too much. The market remains bullish nonetheless, despite this news. On top of this, tomorrow is going to be a crazy day, and here's the reason why. It's going to be Wednesday, February 19th, 2025. In the morning, we have some mortgage data, which is very minor. And then there's just some housing data at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Once again, very, very minor data. Then we have some bill and bond auctions coming out at 11:30 a.m. and 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Once again, quite minor data. But then things get serious at 2 p.m. So this is the main thing you guys need to remember. You guys don't have to worry about the other stuff. 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. This is a couple of hours into the market open. We have the FOMC minutes coming out. And for those who are confused, it is not the same thing as FOMC. It is simply just a minutes report. So during FOMC, normally Jerome Powell gives his speech. He answers a lot of questions and he talks about what is going on with the state of the economy and interest rates. But in this case, this is going to be very, very different. The FOMC minutes is similar, except it's going to be the FOMC meeting on paper. So it's going to be a paper report about what the Fed has been telling us, what their views are about inflation, and what the other Fed officials are thinking. Now, when Jerome Powell was giving his testimonies in front of the US House and Senate, he continued to say the same things over and over again, which is that we have to be very cautious with the way inflation is looking. But so far, the US economy is very strong. The labor market is showing lots of resilience, and simultaneously, inflation is still under control. He did mention that it's elevated. Those were his exact words, but it's still under control. So he was a little bit more dovish if you look at what he's been saying for the last couple of meetings. For there to be more cuts, though, he wants to see inflation come down more. He did mention that, make that very, very clear. So we'll see what that leads to. And then keep in mind that the last time we got FOMC, the market did see a bit of a decline. That's when this decline really started on a SPY and these other charts before we made a full recovery. So this is when we had like that FOMC meeting, when we got this like big rug pull before the market made a full recovery. So it all depends on what these Fed officials end up saying. If the Fed is more dovish, the market could pump more. If not, if they remain more hawkish, things could change. So we'll see about that. Right now, the market thinks there's a 97.5% chance the Fed keeps rates the same. So it all depends on what the tonality of the Fed is for tomorrow during the minutes reports. I'll give you guys a real-time update on this and let you guys know, is this looking good? Is it bad? What's going on with this? So we'll see, just to be safe. So with that, with that being said, if we pump more, okay, if we start to see some good data from the Fed, if the Fed remains very, very dovish tomorrow and they continue to give us good insights, the market could continue to pump to new all-time highs. If it's the opposite, if the market's pumping very hard approaching this report, and then the report ends up telling us that the Fed is going to be more hawkish, they're not sure about when they're going to cut rates, inflation is elevated, if they start saying that, the market could also get a rug pull. So I can't make promises about what's going to happen at 2 p.m. We have to get ready, so make sure you're prepared just to be safe. So keep that in mind. When it comes to other pieces of news, we have Etsy announcing earnings for tomorrow alongside Wix and Carvana. On Thursday, we have Alibaba and Walmart, and then Friday is when we have very minor earnings, so just keep that in mind. Also, the fear and greed index is currently at neutral. It's not too fearful, not too greedy. It's in between. Momentum remains neutral. It's stuck in between as well. It's trying to push a little bit higher. The put to call option ratio is at extreme greed right now. That's making up the majority of sentiment. And market volatility is very, very neutral. We're waiting to see how this ends up changing. So, with that being said, what do I think is going to happen? Here's my honest assessment. For now, the market remains bullish. I think there's going to be another attempt to push, but I can't promise you the move will last forever until we get the FOMC minutes. That's going to cause much large moves, so get ready for that just to be safe. But let's talk about the charts. So for now, when you zoom out and look at SPY, we're bullish. Why are we bullish? Because we had this resistance right here. We had this yellow trend line acting as resistance. We hit this, rejected, rejected, rejected. Then we finally broke out of it when Donald Trump announced his tariffs. That's what triggered this rally. And since then, the market's been making higher highs and higher lows. So it's bullish. A breakout of this is bullish. And then the second factor is this. When you look at SPY on the 5 minutes time frame, we did get a bit of a pullback. I was predicting we would dip and bounce. We ended up gapping up before doing that. So it was a little bit different from what I was predicting. But in a nutshell, we did dip and then bounce. You guys can see that my prediction was still correct to some extent. So with that being said, the market got this sell-off, but we did not close below 608. We held above this and we saw buyers defend, which is a good sign that this is like an inverse head and shoulders. And SPY is going to try to get back up to these highs again, which is a sign that the bulls have a bigger edge. With that being said, when you look at the 4-hour time frame, let's talk about this. What do I think about the levels and what do I think is going to happen? Here's my answer. So tomorrow, what's going to likely happen is there's a very good chance with a wick forming like this. Typically, when you form big wicks like that, that is going to be signifying more upside. So I do think that this is going to be trying to push for about 612 again. And if that breaks, if it breaks the 612s, we're going to about 615 pretty easily. There's not much resistance stopping SPY as we're in new territory at all-time highs. So keep that in mind. So I anticipate tomorrow we're going to be pushing higher like this, approaching the big reports, right? And then I don't know if the FOMC minutes will pump this to new highs like this, or if the report is going to cause us to go from these high levels and then just get a huge rug pull right back down. It all depends. If you're bearish on SPY, you need to see it lose 608. If 608 fails us, we turn back down to 605 and 603. If we're bullish, you want to see SPY hold above 612 to push for 615 to 616. Could go either way depending on the levels, but for now, we're looking more bullish. We're looking more bullish because of the fact that we're forming a nice wick here. So I expect us to push a bit higher to start things off, but then whether or not the big upside move lasts depends on the minutes. So what does the Fed tell us? That's going to be a big, big, big factor. For now, look for some upside for the time being to get back up to these highs tomorrow morning. Then we'll see if the Fed causes a rug pull or if we get a big pump or not. For now, we favor upside as the most likely possibility. For the QQQ, we look a bit more bullish because I called out this inverse head and shoulders, and also because of the fact that there was this dichotomy between futures and these ETFs. So we have a left shoulder, a head, and then a right shoulder. We had this full measured move up to about the 540s before we start to break out. And when you zoom in, you guys can see that the bulls have a bigger edge because looking at the QQQ, we bounced off our key support. We held 535 at least thus far. So if you're bearish on the QQQ, you want to see us lose 535. If we fail there, we're looking for 533 or below. If we're bullish, because this wick is forming, this typically signifies this imbalance will fill back up towards the 540s for a temporary push. If we break the all-time high, I think we go up to about 542.5. Then eventually 545 is our potential targets. So I see those as two psychological levels at the all-time high. So what do I think is more probable? What is my prediction for this? I think that the QQQ is going to be pumping tomorrow, just like this, trying to get her back up to about the all-time high, maybe a little bit higher. And then we have the minutes reports. Will the FOMC minutes cause a rug pull and a move back down below 538 to dump to 535? Or do we continue to rally higher and get back up towards these highs? There's a very, 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 very good chance, we pump up to about 545 to continue this rally because of the fact that the market's looking very bullish and because the bulls have a much larger edge. So we'll see. Jerome Powell was a bit more dovish last week. I would say he was very optimistic about the economy. He continued to help the market push. So there's a good chance that the Fed might do that, but we'll see just to be safe. As you know, I am not a fortune teller. I can't make promises about what the Fed will say. I can't always promise you what Jerome Powell will say. So we'll see about that. For the Russell 2000 IWM, it looks a bit more bullish because of the fact that there's a left shoulder ahead and then a right shoulder. We're also above our EMAs, which are starting to slope upwards, which tends to signify more upside. What might happen is this, a little bit of a dip with this wick forming to retest these EMAs, just like what we saw today, then a bounce higher to get back up towards 229 to 230. That's the most likely possibility, technically speaking, but this depends on the FOMC minutes. If we lose 225, we're looking for a dump back down to the 223s. If we break past 227.5, we could be trying to get back up to about 229. This chart's favoring upside, but we'll see just to be safe depending on what the Fed announces tomorrow. So get ready for FOMC minutes. As far as ES goes, we are looking more bullish because when you zoom out of ES, check this out, guys. It's looking bullish. You guys could see, like I said in my previous videos, we're breaking out right here, right? We had this flag that was forming. We broke out of the flag. That was the first breakout move. Now what happened was we had this other flag and we broke out of it again last week during Donald Trump's announcements of his tariffs. So far, we're favoring a move like this as the most likely possibility. Could this change? It all depends on some different factors, but for now, we look bullish. So what do I think about the levels? Notice that ES dipped. It dipped to about the 6120s, but then it bounced right back up like there is no tomorrow. If you're bearish, you will need to see this thing lose 61.33 and 61.10. If 61.10 fails us, I do expect us to dump below or very close to 6100 below. And if as long as we're above 61.33, we are favoring the upwards direction for a push like this, a dip, and then a push higher towards like the 61.68 area, which is like close to where this high is up here. And also these highs up here, which I think we could be visiting very soon. So I anticipate that we're going to be trying to make a full recovery, especially off this slanted inverse head and shoulders. We have like a left shoulder, a head, and then a right shoulder. So nice confluences that suggest upside is likely coming for an attempt to get back up to all-time highs towards the 61.68 area or above. Now, even if we do pump towards these highs, okay, whether we pump higher or not depends on some factors. To be bullish, you want to see us get back above 61.68 to push for about just under 6,200. If you're bearish, you want to see a big rejection after the Fed gives us a rug pull. It could be either one of these moves depending on what the Fed says, but I'm favoring upside a little bit more as of right now because there are a lot of buyers defending, and the chart is showing no sign of major weakness. On NQ, the same thing. Like I said earlier, we have a potential target all the way up here. I think my line got deleted at 22,400 plus. That's our target. See, that's the full measured move. Now, notice futures are not at all-time highs, but we're seeing SPY and the QQQ making those all-time highs. I did talk about this in my video from Friday about how the market is in this very, very interesting phase where futures were a little bit lagging, whereas we saw our ETFs pumping quite a bit. So this is what's going to pump SPY and the QQQ even higher. There's a left shoulder, a head, and then a right shoulder. The full measured move is supposed to be around 22,400. And notice we're holding our 4-hour 20 EMA very nicely. So this is looking a bit more bullish to me. We've got a bit of a sell-off today, and then we just bounced. So I think that's going to try to visit the highs and maybe try to get up to these highs very soon. And then we'll see, does the Fed tomorrow cause a rug pull back down, or do we just continue to break out higher? As long as we're above 22,200, we favor upside for 22,400. And if we end up losing 22,000 flat, we dump back down. My gut tells me we're going to continue to uptrend for 22,400 plus as we look a bit more bullish. So just keep that in mind. For Bitcoin, we're looking decent. Looking at the 4-hour, we're technically on a bit of a downtrend, making lower highs here, but we have the potential to push up to about 96,000 plus. I think there's a very good chance we try to do that, so watch and see. I think that there's a very high probability we see some more upside. For Nvda, I'm seeing something very good about it. So we called out upside on Nvda and noticed that so far Nvda did push to fill this gap over here. So the gap did fill. Great job by Nvda. I do think it's going to pull back just a bit before it tries to go even higher. Morgan Stanley gave them a buy rating after yesterday's news. So that's a very, very good piece of news. And their Blackwell chips are leading to a lot of optimism for earnings. So I think that with a new system in place, this could dip a little bit, maybe retest like 135 or so for a little bit of a pullback before it tries to bounce again and continues to go higher. Overall, it remains more bullish. The trend is bullish. So for example, when you look at the trend, there was an instance where Nvidia dumped, rebounded completely, pulled back for a couple of days before it went higher, might pull back for a day or two before it tries to bounce again, but it still remains more bullish as long as we don't end up losing 132. So I think we might be retesting 135 or so before it tries to bounce. As long as 132 does not fail, so it's going to likely continue to do that. So keep that in mind. Tesla's in the middle. It's very flat right now. There was some good news about how we had some big hedge funds buying up Tesla, which was very, very good news. However, whether or not we get a bounce depends on some factors. So we have a left shoulder, a head, and then a right shoulder that formed right over here. This is actually very interesting to see. And then if we maintain the structure, this should technically, or at least theoretically lead to more upside. If we break 362, we're looking for an attempt for 375. If we end up losing 348, we're looking for a dip back down to about 340. We could go either way, but for now, with the inverse hand shoulders, Tesla's consolidating. It does favor that it wants to go up to about 362 a little bit more, depending on what kind of reaction we get from the Fed. So, yes, I think that's it's possible Tesla tries to kind of push like this tomorrow, but it's going to remain range bound. If the Fed gives us the rug pull, then yes, it's possible we turn back down. If not, then we could be looking for a break above 360 to start pushing higher, depending on what the Fed announces. So get ready for the FOMC minutes. I do expect a very, very big move. For Apple, we're in the middle. We look a bit more bullish. As long as we don't lose 242, we're favoring 248. If we lose 242, we could be dipping to 240 flat. We have a wick forming here, so this is kind of favoring a dip and then a bounce for 248 as a potential move. And then if we make that move tomorrow, we'll see if the minutes cause us to go even higher for the 250s, or if we end up dumping back down towards 242 all over again. For now, we look a bit more bullish. With that being said, guys, I'm not going to go over as many specific details for the rest of the tickers. I'm going to be kind of quick with the rest of these, but just keep in mind, we're going to be very, very patient, at least with the way that these are looking. So looking at Netflix, we are in the middle. It did come down just a bit after we got some negative news. Not the best of news, at least for them. So that being said, we're watching to see if 1035 holds. There's a wick forming here. It's kind of consolidating. So I think that it's very probable that it kind of like pushes like this and comes back down and consolidates for a bit. But then whether it gets a bounce depends on the minutes and such. So the minutes may cause us to bounce back up to the 1070s or to back down to the low 1000s. I anticipate a small push up tomorrow morning to retest our resistance near 1050 before it tries to dip again. That's what I'm seeing, at least for now. So just keep that in mind. For MicroStrategy, we look a bit more bullish. Inverse head and shoulders like pattern. We need to try to hold above 337.5. If that holds, we're looking for the 340s. If we lose 331, we dip back down, but I think this is looking a bit more bullish for 340 plus. I'm seeing a lot of buyers who are defending. For Celsius, we look a bit more bullish, especially as we're trying to break out of this wedge. So it's very, very nice to see this as we have like an inverse head and shoulders. If we lose 23 flat, we're looking for 22.5. As long as we're above 23, we're looking for an attempt to push back up to this imbalance towards 23.75 to 24. I think we favor upside very, very quickly. For Palantir, we look more bullish. As long as we don't end up losing 117, we are favoring an uptrend towards the 130 area. For now, we look bullish. I do want to mention that it has some gaps to fill below, so it will eventually turn back down. But we're not ready yet to turn. We still remain bullish, so don't expect it to dump yet. Just continue to see a little bit more upside. So I think that 130 is coming for Palantir as long as there's no bad news tomorrow with the Fed. Overall, we look a bit more bullish. Rivian has earnings on Thursday. So on Thursday after market close, we have Rivian's earnings. For now, we look very, very bullish approaching earnings. I mentioned this yesterday. This may continue to uptrend for this like 15 plus target. So tomorrow it might dip a little bit to retest 14 flat. That's where we have previous a lot of liquidity right over here. If you look at our volume nodes, which I'm not going to do right now, but I'm just telling you that that's where we have an area of interest. Before it tries to bounce back up towards the 15s, I think it looks a bit more bullish. It depends on the Fed tomorrow, of course, but for now we do favor upside. SoFi looks bullish. We got a breakout out of this falling wedge. This is a good sign. We're going for that 17 targets. 17.2 is previous support becoming resistance. I think we push for 17.29. Then if we break that, we're looking for this imbalance full close to 18. Looks bullish so far to me. AMD is looking decent. It's trying to bounce, but we're at resistance, so please be very careful. Notice we have this white trend line. I hope you guys can see this clearly, but we touched this, rejected, 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 rejected every single time. When I zoom in, you will see the same thing has been going on. Rejection, bounce, rejection, rejection, rejection. It's not doing a good job at breaking out so far. To break out, you want to see AMD break this resistance, start pushing for above 121. If we break that, we are more bullish. If we reject it, we turn back down. So look for a very big test tomorrow. This may depend on the Fed and factors like that. Nvidia's earnings may also affect this, so please be very, very careful. We'll see. Is this a wedge? I'm not going to really worry about a wedge yet. I just want to see if we could break resistance or not. That's going to be on my mind. we're at resistance, so I would love to see AMD break out of this and continue to pump. So we'll see. For now, I'm going to be very patient with this, but just know it's at a tough resistance, and we have to wait for what the reaction is depending on the Fed. ARM is just consolidating between 155 and 162. It's going to likely continue to do that, not really doing a whole lot. Coinbase got a big rejection. We were expecting this to dip lower. I was correct about that. I did expect around 260, very close to where we ended up going to. It might try to bounce towards this imbalance around 268 today or tomorrow. I think we might bounce a little bit for 268 to 270, and we'll see if we reject. We watch that very, very closely. Amazon's trying to rebound here. We're going to be watching to see if 225 holds. As long as that holds, we could attempt to push back up to 229. If 225 fails us, still, we could be dumping back down. So for now, it's just barely holding support. Might see a small rebound to about 227.8 to 229, and we'll see if we reject. Might be a small bounce before it rejects. Just keep that in mind. For Meta, we're in the middle. We have resistance at 723 to 20 EMA. Supports are at 708 and 700. This setup is a bit more bearish when you have like a big red bar and then like, this rejection right over here. We're not even bouncing off this wick yet. So this does look like it might be dipping a bit more towards like 708 before it tries to bounce. So please be careful, guys. I want you guys to have this as a warning that this could actually dip even more. So be very, very careful. Meta is looking a little bit weaker to me. Microsoft is looking in the middle. If we could break 409 to 410, we're looking for a bounce for like the 412s. If not, we could be dipping. This looks like an accumulation that's forming. So this is typically a bit more bullish because you see wicks forming. So this is looking like it wants to bounce, but this depends on the Fed tomorrow. Google's looking decent right now. We're going to be watching to see if this could hold above its key levels. As of right now, it's in the middle between 183 and 187. It's going to likely consolidate. So we'll give this some time to develop. For GameStop, we have this wick forming here and a bit of a rejection. Look at 26.76 as our main support. We could dip closer to like the 26 area before it tries to bounce, so just keep that in mind. AMC is trying to bounce right over here as well, looking a little bit more bullish. We need to hold above 3.7. As long as that holds, we're gonna get closer to 4. DJT is dipping right now. Not looking the best. Gonna be looking to see if this could try to hold support around this 29 area, so give it some time. The VIX gapped up and now it's rejecting. It has a gap below. So if it truly rejects here, this might be dipping to fill its gap as the market pushes a bit higher. This is a bullish indicator that the market will likely open higher tomorrow or try to push even more. The 10-year is kind of flat, is trying to push here. This depends on what the Fed announces tomorrow, so we'll see if it rejects or not. It's still in the middle. Same thing with the dollar. It's trying to push here, but we'll see if it rejects. Could be forming a flag, so we'll see just to be safe. For now, the dollar is looking like it wants to push closer to like 107.5. But we'll see if it rejects off 107 or not. I'm going to be very patient with this. So with that being said, the market favors upside. We're looking a bit more bullish. It looks like SPY wants to push a bit higher tomorrow. But here's the big but. Whether or not this continues will depend on what the Fed announces tomorrow at the FOMC minutes. Once again, it's not necessarily a typical FOMC meeting. It's simply just a report that comes out by the Fed to give us more insights about what their thoughts are. So please keep that in mind, guys. We'll see what happens with the Fed FOMC report at the FOMC minutes tomorrow at 2 p.m. So get ready for some high volatility once that's out. I thank you all so much for listening. Have a good rest of your day. I'll be back with another updates tomorrow before market open. Thank you for listening, and peace out.